Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a story that's captivated America for decades, a case that's etched into the very fabric of true crime history. We're talking about JonBenet Ramsey. For nearly 30 years, this mystery has been shrouded in doubt, whispers, and endless speculation. But what if I told you that right now, in this very moment, things are finally stirring? Not with old theories rehashed, but with real lab lights flipping on, old evidence boxes reopening, and, crucially, people in power finally sitting down for meetings they've dodged for what feels like forever. If there was ever a window, a true opportunity for the JonBenet Ramsey mystery to move forward, it's now. And you're going to want to hear why. Let's rewind a bit back to December 26, 1996, Boulder, Colorado. Police respond to a frantic call from the Ramsey home. Hours later, in the family's basement, they make a heartbreaking discovery: 6-year-old JonBenet. From that devastating day forward, the story began to mutate. A bizarre ransom note, a house crawling with officers, a crime scene that many argue was never properly secured, and a media frenzy that just crushed any hope for nuance under a mountain of speculation. Years turned into decades. Suspects came and went. And yet, the stark, simple truth remains: the killer has never been named, until perhaps now. So why is this moment different? What's changed after all these years? Well, late in 2024, a powerful 3-part Netflix docuseries by Joe Berlinger landed, and it completely reframed the entire narrative. It stripped away all the old noise, forced us to ask new questions, and it hit like an absolute shockwave. Get this, within just 24 hours of that premiere, the Boulder Police Department, breaking their usual pattern, released their annual case update a whole month early. Why? To address the absolute surge in public attention. That show didn't magically solve the crime, but it absolutely changed the temperature around it. Suddenly, no comment just wasn't going to cut it anymore. Public pressure, it turns out, can be a mighty force, and that pressure seems to be translating into action. Inside the police department, there's new leadership, and, at least in their tone, a new posture. Chief Stephen Redfern has publicly acknowledged that things could have been handled better back in the day, and he's stated that the case is active. They're even bringing in outside forensic expertise to weigh in on DNA recommendations. Now, polished promises aren't proof, we all know that, but they matter. Because what comes next, the real path to answers, requires both official permission and relentless persistence. Here's the part that should make you lean forward and really listen. In 2025, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, began testing dozens of items from the case. And they're not just retesting known swabs with better technology, which is already a huge deal. They are pulling samples from areas of that basement crime scene that have never been forensically examined before. Think about that for a second. This is the quiet revolution happening in cold cases. Techniques that simply did not exist in 1996 can now potentially pull usable profiles from the tiniest, oldest traces of evidence. If any of those items yield a robust, foreign DNA profile, especially one that shows up across multiple objects, the universe of possible offenders narrows with ruthless speed. That's how science can cut through decades of fog. One specific area keeps coming up over and over as a potential game changer: the garrote. Whoever tied those knots would have put pressure, left sweat, and potentially skin cells where the rope bit into itself. Family advocates and former legal counsel have been pushing publicly for fresh analysis of that garrote. Their argument is compelling. If male DNA is preserved inside that knot, it could provide the single cleanest window into the hands that committed this crime. Now, it's not a guarantee, knots can be tricky, and contamination is always a real risk. But this is exactly the kind of high-value contact zone that modern labs are built to interrogate with incredible precision. But technology isn't the only engine driving this renewed push. There's a powerful human one too, stubborn, grieving, and absolutely relentless. In January 2025, John Ramsey, JonBenét's father, met with the new chief for roughly 90 minutes to discuss advanced DNA and genetic genealogy. He left that meeting encouraged for the first time in a very long time. A single meeting isn't a breakthrough, no, but after years of stalemate, a door cracking open, allowing for dialogue and renewed hope, really matters. Throughout the summer and into early fall, the family's public posture remained optimistic as testing continued to expand. This isn't just about laboratory science, it's about persistent human advocacy. The push isn't solely toward the lab, it's also toward the law. The Ramseys and their allied advocates are campaigning for Colorado to adopt a state-level version of the Federal Homicide Victims' Families' Rights Act. What does that mean in plain terms? It would give families of state and local cold cases a formal, timeline-bound process to demand a review when investigations stall. Imagine that files wouldn't just gather dust because leadership changes or budgets tighten. A petition supporting this crucial move has been gathering signatures, creating policy pressure aimed at preventing the next family from spending 30 winters begging for basic follow-through. It's about systemic change, ensuring no family suffers this kind of indefinite limbo again. If there's a secret spine running through this entire story, it belongs to the late detective Lou Smit. He was a dissenting voice back in the day, believing strongly that an intruder was likely involved. Crucially, he was incredibly organized in his thinking. Before he passed away, Smit built a massive spreadsheet of the case, roughly 600 entries of names and leads. And that file, it didn't vanish with him. His daughter and a small team of dedicated volunteers still work it, quietly, doing the slow, boring, but absolutely essential work of elimination. According to recent reports, they've already taken about 25 names off the board through DNA comparisons. That might not be a headline that crashes Twitter, but in real investigations, that is monumental progress. Every ruled-out name is time recovered, attention re-aimed, and precious noise reduced, bringing them closer to the truth. Now let's be real. None of this erases the hard parts, the daunting challenges. We are nearly 30 years removed from that tragic night. DNA degrades over time. Some items were mishandled back in 1996, adding layers of complexity. Contact DNA is incredibly finicky. It can transfer easily, and often it's only partial. Prosecutors, understandably, need more than just a whisper of alleles to charge a case with this kind of glare, this kind of historical weight. And in Colorado, like many states, the use of investigative genetic genealogy is carefully fenced in by policy. It is available in some circumstances under certain approvals, but it's far from a magic wand. That's precisely why the sheer volume of dozens of items currently being tested at the CBI matters so much. You don't bet on one single swab, you bet on the pattern across many, looking for that repeatable, undeniable signal that can survive intense scrutiny. The documentary's cultural shockwave also played a huge role. People who had tuned out the case years ago suddenly tuned back in. And some of them had memories, perhaps old objects, or even second-hand stories that felt relevant. The Boulder police acknowledged this wave of renewed public interest. Their early update, in effect, said, "We hear you, keep those tips coming. We're working with partners, and we are not done." For a department that was once largely defined by silence on this case, even that subtle shift helps immensely. Public pressure might not be a substitute for hard evidence, but it absolutely makes inaction too expensive to maintain. So, picture the board today, right now. On one side, you have a state-of-the-art lab in Colorado running modern assays against aging evidence, including items from that basement that no instrument has ever touched before. On another, a living spreadsheet, hundreds of lines deep, being meticulously pruned by DNA comparisons. At the center, a determined family pushing lawmakers to force reviews when momentum dies, and meeting a police chief who is at least willing to sit down and talk openly. And over all of it, a new generation of viewers who don't carry the old narratives, who are willing to ask, without decades of baggage, what the evidence actually says today. It's a compelling, hopeful picture. If a strong foreign DNA profile emerges from this new testing, especially from a high contact area like the garrote, and if that profile replicates on another item, analysts will push it through CODIS, the national DNA database. A hit there could be instant, a stunning breakthrough. If not, the question then becomes policy. Can that profile, under Colorado's rules and with the right approvals, be used for investigative genetic genealogy? We're talking about building family trees, identifying shared DNA segments, the slow, methodical triangulation that has cracked so many other cold cases in recent years. It's a long road, absolutely, but these are the roads that now exist, paved by science and persistence. There's no mysticism here, just probabilities, sophisticated filters, powerful databases, and a whole lot of patience. Strip away all the chatter, all the theories, all the decades of noise, and you land back in the basement of a quiet house the morning after Christmas. You think about a child who never got to celebrate her 7th birthday, and about the way an unimaginable grief can become a second life as work for those left behind. You think about knots, that someone tied them with their own hands, and about the ordinary miracle of science that a few cells, if they survived, can still speak volumes. If you were in or around Boulder in December of 1996 and you've held on to a story, a memory, or an observation that you've never shared with authorities, now truly is the time. If you've held on to an odd memory, a half-heard boast, or remember an unfamiliar face from a winter party around that time, please call it in. The tip you might think is small or insignificant could be the absolute missing context that makes sense of a lab result and finally breaks this case open. And if you believe that families should have the right to trigger fresh, formal reviews of stalled cases, please consider lending your name to the effort in Colorado. Public pressure can't solve a murder, but it can absolutely keep the lights on and the momentum going until science finally does. In the noise of America's most argued-over mystery, here's a quiet prediction. The end won't look like a dramatic movie scene. It will look like a line in a spreadsheet turning grey. A name shifting from possible to eliminated. And then, one day, another name that does not grey out. A knock on a door. A set of handcuffs, a case that never truly slept, finally closing its eyes. Thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this important conversation. If you found this update informative and thought-provoking, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into true crime and justice, and share this video to help spread awareness. Your support helps us bring these stories to light. We'll see you in the next one.